What's up? My name's Glue Boy. Welcome back to the channel, and today, more book talk. We're talking about books again. This one being The Descent of Angels, and I have some things to say. A lot of things. We'll see how long this one actually goes on for. Uh, First and foremost, I'll probably toss this at the beginning of every single video, in case some people discover this for the first time. I am not a professional of reviewing books. That's not my field of study, not my shit. I'm a filmmaker at heart and in degree, so this is where I approach a lot of my media criticism. But still, I feel like a lot of the points I say might still hold some merit. People like hearing me talk about it. And as well, despite what I say in this video, I am a fan of the Dark Angels as a legion and as a chapter. The Lion, not my favorite Primarch. He's fine. He's alright, like mid-tier for me, but like I don't hate the guy. He's not one of my like bottom hated. He's not a Lorgar or a Perturabo or a Horus Heresy Gilman for me. As well, if you disagree with literally anything I say here, if you think my opinions on this book are just fucking wrong, please tell me in the comments. I desperately want to hear them. I am interested, especially in those of you who might have a fully different opinion than I do. But regardless, just hop into this book. So, The Descent of Angels was an interesting work through. I can't say I'm the biggest fan of it. I think so far it is the worst Horus Heresy book I have read. I mean, I gave some middling opinions to, like, Flight of the Eisenstein. I said it was alright. This one, I think, teeters more on the edge of getting bad for me. But before I get into my many complaints, let's just talk about some pros to this book, because I think there are a lot of very good things it does or sets up. Maybe it just doesn't pay it off. The first part is the prologue rules so hard. It is so good of a massive prologue going through the history of Caliban and the emergence of the Lion, how that's starting to impact things, how the knightly orders work, and even like setting up that this book in some way and like the storyline we're going to follow with Zariel is kind of a sympathetic look at Luther and kind of defending some of his later actions down the line, which, interesting, that's great. I'm so curious to learn more about Zahariel. I hope just by a different author, which I'll build on that too. The actual narration in prose, I guess it would be called, is pretty solid. It's very well done, while I think for some of these, the battles in Descent of Angels are probably the weaker of the described combat scenes in the Horus Heresy so far. I still think they hold some really interesting points. They're detailed well enough, and I think the actual battles are dynamic and interesting. That and, like, the actual story itself is fine and good. I like the events it's describing. I don't like how they're done, if that makes sense. As in 40k, I think to an extent, you have to separate sometimes the idea of a character and event and what they're meant to be in the universe from their actual execution, because it's usually varying qualities. So I think the actual like story that's being told, the plot, and when it's just described to you rather than actually reading it, is way more interesting. And there's a lot of solid parts here. Especially like when the Imperium arrives and you see how Caliban is being impacted by now being under Imperial control, and the many pushbacks people have, and also the similarities in culture that these two, like the Imperium and Caliban, have. That, and I should say, the actual characterization of the Lion here, I think is really well done. It's really interesting. I think he's probably one of the best characters in this book. I don't have a lot that I love, but Lion at least is up there. I think he's very good. But let's get on to some of my complaints. The first main one is this book, it consistently undermines itself so badly, as this book feels like either the author or an editor that came in later believed that the audience reading this book would be too stupid to understand the points it's making, understand the symbolism it's setting up, or the imagery, so it kind of feels insulting to read, as something that happens so much is the narrator will set up a fantastic scene, a really cool, like, metaphors being worked in, and then a character walks in and tells you exactly what that means. And it's so annoying. The first one is the prologue. The prologue is great. I love the prologue. It felt like a great setup. I was getting really excited. And then right after, you get to meet Zahariel and his cousin Nemiel, and they immediately start reiterating exactly what the prologue said. Like, verbatim, but written from the perspective of children who have really annoying, like, lines. The actual writing for them is really annoying. And also, it doesn't help, I'm an Audible listener, and the actual narrator did these really high-pitched, like, kid voices for these, like, characters, so the whole time it's annoying. As well, Brother Armadas' arrival. He comes back to the Rock, he's all, hype shit, everyone's like, hell yeah, another cool night. Zahariel, like, the main character, is like, oh, damn, that's my hero, this is super cool. This is, like, inspiring. Oh, shit, I'm actually seeing him in the flesh. He's just a guy, like me. I could be him one day. He goes through, like, this really interesting monologue of, like, meeting your hero, finding out they're just a regular person and not, like, a larger-than-life figure, and being like, that's more interesting and inspiring. Sets it up great. And then immediately Armadas is like, I am here to inspire you. You could be like me. Like, just exactly what Zahariel says. A fucking another one. Spoiler alert, this entire thing is going to be spoiling this book. He dies. A Calibanite lion gets him. He rides on back. And Zahariel, who's him and Armadas have a pretty good friendship, is like, Zahariel, here's my gun. Take it. This is important to me. I know you'll achieve great things. And then, oh my fucking god. The Lord Cypher. Fuck this character, by the way. I hate this man. He walks in as Zahariel's crying, Armadas is dying in this, like, really beautiful moment, and then explains, you see, there's a Calibanite custom of giving your weapon to someone you respect and think can achieve great things. Like, I get it. You gave the most basic of storytelling setups, like motivation for a character, and you're now explaining it to me. I get it. I've read a book before. And, oh my god. There's a scene as well where, the last one I'll rant about for this specific point. Later on the line, an ambassador for this planet of Sarosh is like, Mr. the Lion, your Imperium is evil and awful. You didn't know we were religious because we hid it from you. And then you have a fucking, like, felt like 20 minutes in this book of them back and forth of, you didn't discover because we were hiding it. Why didn't you tell us? Because our gods told us to hide it. Where were you hiding it? In the forests and the caves. Why were you hiding it in the forests and caves? Because our gods told us to hide it. Why didn't we know about this? Because we hid it from it. I get it. I understand. The point you're making is that they hid their religion, so the Imperium didn't find it. It's so basic of a concept. And that's just what this book does, endlessly, where it feels like I'm being insulted by trying to read this. I guess the points they're making, I like the symbolism, and then immediately a character jumps in and is like, no, fuck you. You gotta reiterate everything you just heard. It's chaff. It's annoying that all of that could have been cut out with no bearing on the plot. It would have been way stronger if you just take the big red pen and cross all it out. Like, I wish there was an abridged version that just shortened this book. Might be like a couple hours shorter, maybe a few hundred pages shorter too, but I don't know. As well, there's another problem, built onto the exposition thing. This book feels like the worst part of the Star Wars prequels. I'm not getting into a big rant on Star Wars. Whatever. I'm not a Star Wars fan. I don't really give a shit. The prequels themselves have a problem where a lot of the main story beats, a lot of the important moments in the prequels, and, like, these scenes that should have a lot of tension in them are delivered by two characters, or three characters sometimes, walking down a hallway talking about it, which is a large thing. This book has a major, show not tell problem, as every major detail of this book is talked about by just two characters sitting down or standing, just talking about what's going on. I don't want to hear these characters talk about it. I want to see it. I want to feel it. I want to know what's happening from the perspective of those happening there. That's what I want to know. Like, for example, the planet of Sarosh is completely info dumped on us. The Dark Angels arrive to relieve White Scars of the burden, and a White Scar character is like, hey, Zahariel, you're taking over, here's the vibe. And then he goes through and describes every fucking thing that they've done and how the Soros culture works, how the trouble has been with the bureaucracy being really weird, instead of, say, what Horus Rising does, where we get to see the planet of 6319 actually described and lived in by an iterator who breaks away from the main group and is exploring the planet. More interesting, because I'm there. I'm in the scene now. Instead of, if I'm picturing the scene, it's just two people in power armor talking. One is significantly more interesting than the other. Or a lot of times, too, this hits in really inopportune moments where there should be some actual tension or action going on. Like when Zahariel and Emil confront the Grand Master of House Lupus. This scene where, what also, just the fucking point they're making is really stupid. I think a lot of the dialogue in this and a lot of the characters just make really weird decisions. They're really dumb sometimes in actual dialogue. And the one where this mainly came up is in that conversation with the Grandmaster, where his point is killing all the beasts means us, the noble houses, don't have anything to do anymore. What are knights without monsters to kill? But he undermines his point. He could be making a great point of, we are weapons. What do you do when there's nothing for the weapon to kill? Because that's a conversation that the Space Marines have had. Garvey Loken had this conversation better in Horus Rising and, like, False Gods. And it was really interesting. I mean, I'm a big fucking fan of the idea of confronting the idea of you are a weapon. You're a tool to be used in war and death, and that's your identity. I mean, I have a fucking berserk tattoo. Obviously, I like Guts, because that's what he is. And in this point, the main point of the Grandmaster is the peasants need to be kept down by us, because the beasts need to happen, we fight the beasts, the peasants know to respect us. It's a dumb point, and no one calls him out of, like, hey, we're the Order, we believe in the merits of people, and we don't look at birth or anything like that, we don't care. That's not what we're doing. Like, you can immediately, like, hey buddy, that's a stupid point. I know I'm 15 years old in this scene as Zahariel, but, like, that's a pretty basic point of, like, you're being weird and, like, classist in a way. And yeah, it's a long conversation when they're ordered to find the guy and fucking kill him. And even more, the scene with the Lion and the Ambassador, the one where they go back and forth on religion. With how the Lion is set up in a lot of other stories and stuff, I don't see his character being one that he stands there and listens to a guy who's like, we're betraying the Imperium, we're gonna kill you, attacks are happening right now, we're right now waging war on the Imperium, and he stands there and asks questions. With how the Lion is set up as a man of action, pure action, I don't see why he would sit there and talk, instead of just like, I'm betraying the Imperium, okay, just unsheath the sword, decapitate, and it's like, alright, cool guys, let's destroy the planet. Orbital bombardments, you know, the whole shebang, let's just start killing them. I understand from a plot perspective, you gotta have, like, the cutscene in a way where the story can actually progress. You can't, like, interrupt mid-monologue. Like, that's not what stories do. You have to have that disconnect. But, like, at least have some degree of separation so the characterization is actually consistent. Because, like I said, I like the Lion. I think he's a strong character, and he's really interestingly written and set up in this book, where I understand what the Lion is. He's a man of action. He's a man who, at the end of the day, is very alone and isolated, because, like, he might be a knight, but he's a Primarch, and a Primarch standing amongst regular people, he doesn't fully fit in. So all these details don't pay off. But yeah, that's Descent to Angels. I have a lot of problems with it. I think it needed some real editing or something. There's too much wrong with this book. I hope that things get better. I'm currently, like, starting on the book Legion, so we'll see how that goes. I've heard some mixed things about Legion, strictly from a friend, though, who doesn't like the Alpha Legion, so that's, you know, maybe I'm getting a mixed signal there. But yeah, let me know what you thought about any of this. Comment below. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe, membership, share the video or something. Peace.